McGillicuddy and Murderer's Pawn Shop, Season 2, Episode 21. There Rust, and Let Me Die. October 10th, 1921. Continued. Noble opened the door and dashed into the secret passage. So far so good. But then, before I had a chance, a girl behind me let out a scream. I knew I'd been spotted. I spun around and looked at her. She was about 15. Her boots were muddy. She stared at me like I had the plague, too petrified to move. I laughed. I did. I laughed at her stupid, scared little face. I was so angry and bitter, and it felt so good to have someone to grind under my heel. And then I frightened myself, because I'd never been that mean-spirited in my life. "Come on, Maud," a voice at the back of my head said. "You'll be done with this soon. Just go do what you have to do, and then you'll get your soul back, and you'll feel like yourself again." The girl rushed off, presumably to tell someone I was here. I didn't waste a second. I hurried into the shed and shut the door behind me. Before, when I'd tried to get into this secret passage, I'd felt an invisible barrier. It had felt almost like colliding with a giant spider web. Now I whisked in easily. The doorway had detected my lack of soul and let me pass. I tumbled down dark stone steps. I soon reached an underground hallway that led downwards at a steep incline. There were no candles or gloomy portraits here. It felt like a sewer. It dripped like a sewer. It even smelled like a sewer. As I hurried on, I heard Noble in front of me. He hadn't waited for me, but we were both too cranky to care about his not being a good adventure companion. When I reached him, he nodded to me. "You'll have to forgive me," he said. "I feel even less like myself when I'm with you." That vaguely offended me, because I felt a bit more like myself when I was with him. We came to the end of the hallway and found ourselves face to face with a rust-coloured door. A smoky pane of glass rested in the centre, and I peered out. I could see into the night enthusiast cave. I could see Wrath. He paced inside the gazebo, the wooden train cars lined up around him. I knew the area of the cave that I was looking out from, and to an inside observer, there was nothing here, no doorway or furniture or anything. My guess was that the other side of this door was cleverly disguised as part of the cave wall, and that a slab of fake stone would open on a hinge when we went out. Noble and I waited. I had no way of contacting Mr. McGillicuddy, and I wished I did. There was nothing to do except watch and wait, and hope they would provide our diversion soon. I watched Wrath. He paced back and forth in the semi-darkness. Now and again he paused and crouched beside the tiny wooden train cars. He chuckled and peered into them. He spoke to them. Then he started pacing again. I was tired, and my feet hurt. Noble and I took turns standing watch. We waited for what seemed like hours. "I wonder if he ever sleeps," Noble said, softly. I glanced up at him. Noble seemed as spooked by Wrath as I was. The man was half wooden, and had that changed him? Was he now no longer human? Did he need to sleep at all? Was he a man? Was Hester Rathbone even in there, or were we dealing with a deranged puppet that wore Hester Rathbone's face? All of a sudden Noble jolted. He beckoned to me. I stood up. We peered through the window together and saw Wrath staring, intently, at the main entrance. All this time I'd had no idea what Mr. McGillicuddy was going to do, to get Wrath out of this cave. Now I knew. I felt a chill creep down my arms. Someone was singing. Noble and I could barely hear it, but it held Wrath transfixed. He stumbled towards the main entrance, like someone caught in a dream. The song was sung by a woman, and it hummed and throbbed in my bloodstream, casting a haunted tone over everything we were about to do. Wrath reached the door. He opened it and stepped into the hall beyond, seeking the source of the music. Noble and I had a minute. We had to move quickly. Noble thrust open the door, and I rushed out. I ran as fast as I could towards the black gazebo, towards the wooden train cars. I reached them, my stomach fluttering. After that, time seemed to slow down. I noticed the train cars. I noticed every detail. There were 5 of them, each one a little bit different. With a shudder, I wondered how Wrath had obtained these train cars. They were murder objects, so they'd been in the presence of a murder. But how often were wooden toy train cars witness to a crime scene? Had he, perhaps, created the murder himself? Each train car was a little bit twisted, disjointed, not quite whole. It made me think that Wrath had had them specially made. They were crafted in tones of purple and black. One had tall, sharp angles that made it look like the hunched wings of Dracula. Another was shaped like a coffin. Inside each one, a little wooden person stood. One looked white and crooked, and it leaned out of its window in defeat. Another was splotched in red, and I wonder if the night enthusiast had been stabbed before his imprisonment. I could see the figure of Dawn Mamungus, her painted face smeared like a ruined doll, standing locked inside the largest train car. She stood, slumped, holding a little wooden sign that said, "I will kill again." Was it Wrath's message? Or was it hers? A promise that she would kill Wrath once she was released, that she would kill others. When Wrath had been imprisoned in his train car, his sign had been a plea for help. It had been his words on the sign, not the words of the night enthusiasts who imprisoned him. I could only assume that this was the final, most important message Dawn Mamungus wished to pass on, her epitaph. That she would rise again and she would kill. She would return in order to kill, to continue to feast on the theft of human life. As much as I could have felt pity for Dawn Mamungus, for the other night enthusiasts, I thought instead of the ostrich cage they'd left me in. I thought of the way they'd ruined my life with false murder charges, and for what? So they could get my magic unusual power on their side? I thought of the bodies that Melinda Merkel had supposedly left in her wake, bodies that the night enthusiasts had created themselves. They'd gone on a killing spree, slaughtering innocent strangers, an old woman and a young man, in their quest to pull me to their side. These night enthusiasts didn't deserve to live. Dawn Mamungus was mocking me to my face. She was holding a sign that promised she would continue to kill and ruin lives if I let her out of this train car. Well, I wasn't going to let her out. I was going to let her rot in agony. This moment, this 1-minute chance, and it all came down to me. The ones who belonged to the pawn shop had all agreed. I had agreed. We were going to set them free. Mr. McGillicuddy had struggled for hours to achieve this distraction. It was my only chance, the last flicker of hope for these wooden souls. And I turned my back on them and walked away. A line from Romeo and Juliet sprang to mind. I'm not sure why. "Oh, happy dagger," Juliet says. She stabs herself and finishes, "There rust, and let me die." Melinda Maudie Merkel with a whole soul would never choose this. But Maud with half a soul had chosen this. I would kill who I had been for this decision. Here let me rust, and let me die. I was not going to let them out. I had the keys to heaven, to deliverance, and I was going to leave them in hell. We hope you've enjoyed Season 2, Episode 21, There Rust, and Let Me Die, of McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop is written and performed by Minerva Sweeney Wren, all rights reserved. Visit minervasweeneywren.com to see photographs of the real McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop and learn how you can support the show, keep it advertisement-free, and explore more stories by Minerva Sweeney Wren. McGillicuddy and Murder's Pawn Shop will continue with Season 2, Episode 22, The Burden of a Living Soul.